other sensation. It causes the entire brain to release endorphins and neurotransmitters and to activate. Here's the caveat though. If you think about the music that you like from the ages of 15 to 25, that's the music that you're gonna like for the rest of your life. That is your golden oldies years, right? We think about this golden oldies station, well, it's generational. And as the years go by, the songs transition. So the music you're gonna play for a 90-year-old is significantly different than the music you're gonna play for someone who's 55 with early onset dementia. Think about the generation. I did a one-year fellowship at the VA, and I was actually in Ann Arbor at their senior place. And I was telling them about the power of music and how we can really help people engage and light up. And somebody said, well, you know, that's the age when veterans are typically going on the battlefield. How do you know that you're not triggering something that's actually traumatic? And that was the first time that I had to sit back and say, wow, you're right. People with dementia lose the ability to communicate. They can't talk about their memories. We could be actually eliciting trauma responses from music that we're not even aware of. So I think it's important to recognize how we're using music, and if it's something, using it as a new tool, watching the response of people. If they start to cry, maybe there's something that they either need to talk about or that's just not an appropriate type of song or genre. If they start to get agitated and it's not a positive response, it's the same type of thing. We can be triggering things that we don't even know about within the depths of the layers of the human experience just by playing songs. Another thing that happens with sound is that auditory processing significantly slows down. It can take up to 90 seconds for someone with dementia to process what they hear. 90 seconds is a really long time, like uncomfortably long. You guys, you're gonna laugh at me. I'm the dementia expert, right? My dad has dementia. Like a while back, we go to the restaurant, and it's kind of loud, and the waiter comes up and was like, hey, what do you want to drink? My dad didn't look up, so I was like, I want a Diet Coke. And then the guy said it again to my dad, and my dad still didn't look up. And I was like, he wants a Diet Coke too. And then the waiter walks away, and we're just sitting there quietly for a second, still looking at the menu, and my dad looks up and smiles like the waiter's still sitting there. He says, I want a sweet tea, please. And the waiter was gone. I was like, oh, crap. I should know better, right? I should ask the waiter to give my dad some more time. I should prepare my dad before the waiter even comes up. Dad, what do you want to drink? How can I support my loved one to be engaged and to get what they want by accepting what's going on in their brain? So of course the waiter comes back, brings us 2 Diet Cokes, which I drink, and I get my dad a sweet tea. But it's this opportunity to recognize how we engage and connect with people is different based on how their brain is processing something. With the delayed processing, sometimes people only pick up and remember 1 out of 3 words that you say. You guys can tell that I talk really fast, and I'm usually animated when I talk. So if I'm talking to someone with dementia, I have to lower my tone, talk slower, and put pauses in my words so that people can catch up. And when I talk like that, I have a whole new level of engagement. It sounds like a robot, and I mean, I was kind of monotone, and I'm not sick from my allergies or whatever. But when you engage with someone at that level, they smile and they engage back. If you talk at your regular speed, it's learned helplessness and they check out. Lower your tone, allow pauses, talk slower, people will engage with you more. So if we keep going, smell and taste are linked. If you can't smell, then you can't taste. We don't have diminished taste. And we know that smell is something that goes, especially with Parkinson's type dementia and Alzheimer's disease, it impacts the olfactory bulb in your brain. So a lot of times people will have diminished taste. If you have diminished taste, you have diminished appetite. So if you're thinking about the complications or the consequences of this, you have to think about it from a safety standpoint. If someone is in the kitchen and they leave the gas stove on, they're not going to be able to smell it, and it becomes a safety problem. Or they won't be able to smell the smoke if something's on fire. So lack of smell is a problem. Also, people will eat old food and not recognize it. They can't taste it and they can't smell it. My grandpa, he was in his 90s and he had severe dementia. He really liked Papa John's pizza with anchovies, right? And I went to see him, I guess it was like a year ago, and I didn't think about it. And I pulled out some pizza and I was like, I'm gonna have some pizza. I forgot that he liked anchovies. I took a bite of it. God, y'all, that pizza was a week and a half old. The anchovies. Oh, it was so bad. It was so bad. But it made me realize that my grandpa now needs someone in here every single day, making sure that he has fresh food in his fridge, because his sick old body is consuming this nasty old food, and he doesn't know any better. So making sure that we're setting up an environment that allows safety and success related to the lack and loss of smell and taste is really important. There's a couple other things. Sugar, salt, and fat trigger dopamine in your brain, and it will make you want more. So if someone doesn't have diabetes, putting a little sugar on whatever food you want them to eat can make them want more. If they don't have high cholesterol problems, offering some healthy fats like olive oil or avocado into their eggs or whatever it is that you want them to eat might make them want more. Or using that fake salt gives that trigger of a salt feeling that makes consumption higher. Same with like water. If you want people to drink more water, putting a little fake sugar in it or whatever. Touch is another interesting one. There's this fancy word, it's called a homunculus. A homunculus is like a little weird guy, but I don't even know what I'm talking about. It's a representation of the tactile input on your brain. If you think about a patch of your brain that controls the response from touch, think about it as a map of the United States. And each area of your body has a specific spot, like a state on your brain. Does that make sense? Yeah. So there are certain spots in our body for touch that are bigger states than others. For example, your mouth is like the size of Texas. It's huge, right? Your mouth, your hands, your feet, and your genitalia have that largest area representation on your brain. They have the most tactile touch endpoints, and they are the most sensitive for the rest of your life. You will actually start to lose awareness and tactile input to your elbow and your back and your stomach and your thigh. But those four areas, your hands, your mouth, your feet, and your genitalia, will trigger a really intense response. If we go back and we think about the bathing and the dressing, I just told you that the touch in other parts of your body go down. We're now touching the most sensitive, highly erotic places of your brain, and it's really intense. It can be really uncomfortable. So encouraging people, if you're not in a really unsanitary situation, like if you're just sitting in the shower, encouraging people to hold their own washcloth, doing hand-over-hand care, so that people are engaged with their own care can really reduce the risk of overstimulating somebody. Another thing that can happen is that if you touch someone on the back, they have delayed processing, they have lowered processing. It might be uncomfortable for them, but they're not going to be able to show it. Just offering somebody like a gentle arm hug or side hug, we don't know if they like it or not. So you have to watch body cues. Do they kind of shrivel up, or they open up and they're accepting of what you're doing? One of the things I forgot to mention about vision is the idea of peripheral vision. What I see on the sides, if I'm looking straight, I have ability to see on the side, right? That's peripheral vision. That narrows down to 12 to 24 inches in front of someone. So you start to get tunnel vision, which means if I have a caregiver who's standing here talking to me, I can't see them. So coming to people from the front is really important, as well as not startling someone. So if you're coming to them from the side, don't come at them. That's going to startle them. They'll have a higher risk of falling. But come around from the front. Another thing that happens is that with kyphosis and aging, we just naturally start to look down, right? I'm here. I forget that I have to correct my posture and look up. So we now have a 24 to 36 window off the floor. So we are 12 inches in front of us, 24 inches off the floor is my eye gaze at any given time. So these really nice, fancy places that have all the TVs on the walls that people can't see them, you forget to look up. So, and they're so big, they're like 70 inches, right? I don't have 70 inch width to see. So thinking about coming to people from the front so that they can see you, coming slowly so that they can process it, and offering your hand into their window of sight is really going to help them. If you come with an open hand, this is a little voodoo behind this, but if you put your hand up, if everybody can just put your hand up like this, having your hand face the sky releases endorphins in your own brain. Just sitting here like this is going to make you happier. So this is an opening feeling. This makes us feel safe. When we give this to someone else, they receive that in a space of safety. So then they will come to you with an open hand. If you put that in where they can see you, they're naturally going to feel happier and they're going to follow your arm and make eye contact with you. So how you position your body and you approach someone can change and dramatically alter how they respond to you. Thinking about our hands, I told you that touch is really important, but pressure, I started this with pressure, it's the most important. If you do a hand over hand type of something, like so your hand is here, and they put their hand in yours, and you put your hand on top, you're going to give their body a little sense of pressure. It's like a little hug right there in their hand. It's going to shoot to their brain, and their brain is going to be slow, but it's going to say, oh, that's nice. I can trust this person. I feel safe. Let me calm down. At one of the nursing homes that I worked at, I always offer open hands, and I like to hold hands. Because if you think about touch as a baby, we learn safety with touch. We learn to explore our environment as children with touch. As adults, we touch things that we love. As we have dementia, we have less and less access to touch anything, especially things that we love. So the opportunity to hold someone's hand if they're accepting can change their brain. Even though people can't necessarily form new memories in the hippocampus, the sensory systems can override and form new connections in the brain. When I worked, one of the nursing homes that I worked at, I remember specifically, there was this whole dementia unit, and I ended up with everybody on my caseload. And I would come in, and I would sit down next to somebody, and we'd be singing or talking or whatever, and I'd have my hand out, and people would put their hand in mine, and we would just sit there for 30 minutes holding hands. We'd be talking about doing whatever we're doing, but just touching them to anchor in and remind them that they're human. And I got to the point where I could just walk in and sit down. All of them were my patient at some point, and they would just hold out their hand before I would even hold out mine. Their body connected with that routine in a way to say, I want this. That felt good. Give me some more. Another thing about this is that our habits and our routines are stored close to our brainstem. They're stored in the basal ganglia. So that means that in dementia, typically it affects the top parts of our brain. It goes down. By the time it gets to our brainstem, that controls our breathing and our heart rate and our automatic things that keep us alive. When it gets there, we're at the end of our life. But before it gets there, we can still teach new habits and routines and behaviors through the brain processes using this. Just like if you had a mouse in a maze and you wanted to train the mouse, like in an experiment, to get to a piece of cheese, the mouse doesn't have any higher level thinking. It uses this innate level of brain processes. It's the same kind of thing. We're going to use the mouse model of the brain to change behavior. Movement is another one. Have you guys worked with people who like to wander? Yeah, and rock. So a lot of times, as the brain degrades, people use or have ability to move less and less. But if I take you all back to that baby, we swaddle the baby, right? We're probably singing to the baby, so we're giving the baby some music. What else are we doing to that baby?
Rocking.
We are rocking the baby. We are moving the baby in a linear direction. So chaotic movement like dancing and roller coasters, that's activating to our nervous system. But linear movement, which is in the same direction or back and forth, is calming and regulating to our nervous system. If we're stressed out, we just naturally might just start to rock in our chair. If we're in pain, we just start to rock. There's actually clinical trial studies that show that when they put rocking chairs in nursing homes and dementia units, the rate of behaviors related to dementia significantly dropped just by adding rocking chairs. So thinking about this idea of wandering, and people will do all these obstacles to make people just sit, stop trying to move, so don't run away, right? Maybe people really do just need to move. Let's just go for a walk. If they're not a flight risk of running into the road or falling and getting hurt, facilitating linear movement is going to be one of your best options to manage behaviors. So movement is called vestibular sensory input, and the effects can last up to 4 hours after the input. So if I take someone for a walk, they can be chilled out for 4 hours. That's kind of important, right? So if you think about the effects, same as if you're taking somebody for a car ride and you're moving fast and they're getting motion sick, they can be motion sick for up to 4 hours. And let me tell you, 4 hours is in a normal brain. So who knows how long it is in people with dementia? We haven't done that research yet. It could be like all day, we don't know. Movement is really powerful. So when we're thinking about how are we doing with time?
You got all the time you need.
When we're thinking about, oh, excuse me, I'm gonna get one more drink. I grew up in Kentucky, but my immune system doesn't like it. Okay. So when we're talking about how we help, I told you about all the disease and the despair and all the bad things. I've told you how we're going to get input into the brain, and I've given you a couple tips and tricks on how you can use the body to help the brain. But I want to continue to ground this idea that what we're doing in our daily activities is going to continue to change the brain. And over the last 10 to 20 years, we now have the science that shows that we can build new brain connections even in people with end-stage dementia at the end of their life. It's called neuroplasticity. We can build a brain based on the environment that surrounds us and how we occupy our time. There are a couple areas that are really important to building the brain, so I'm going to go into each one of those. But they're on this slide just as a summary. The technical term for building our brain through the environment is called enriched environments. So this is a cell, it's a brain cell, and it's from a mouse. They took a mouse out of a regular cage, and they put the mouse into an enriched environment. The enriched environment had exercise wheels, and it had healthy foods, and had other mice that it could socialize with. This mouse that they put in there was at the end of its life, and it had advanced Alzheimer's disease. Even still, the cells dramatically, significantly grew, increasing the connections from one cell to the next. So those little hairs at the bottom, those are called dendrites. Each one of them can have up to 10,000 connections to the dendrites around it. So if you multiply this, like we're exponentially growing how the brain communicates, even at the end of life, even in advanced dementia. So thinking about how we actually fully enrich an environment is important. I don't need to keep walking this way, I can't really talk about it. Okay, so social interaction is critical. If you think about your day, if you're an introvert, you have your thoughts going on, you're doing your plan, whatever. That's your brain processing on its own time, own speed, and own network. As soon as you have someone else come into the picture, that's going to force your brain to think about someone else and their pathways and what they want to do, and it's going to make you do something else. And then if you start talking, it's going to continue to change the way that your brain functions. We have the science that shows that social interaction is critical for brain health. People that don't have social interaction, their rates of dementia skyrocket, the rates of depression and anxiety skyrocket, and their mortality is sooner. People die sooner if they don't have social interactions. Another thing that happens with social interactions is called emotional contagion. Have you all ever heard of that? No. If I yawn, you're going to yawn, right? That's kind of a known fact. But Why? Why? It's because we have a system in our brain called the mirror neuron system. I become the mirror of the emotions that I'm around. In a healthy adult, my brain is going to filter out anything that I don't like. Like if I'm sitting next to my husband, who's like having a really bad day and is just in a bad mood, my brain can say, that's his problem. I can feel it in my body, but I'm going to go for a walk and get away from it because I don't like it. In a brain with dementia, I can't filter that. I now absorb his feelings. It's called emotional contagion. Our emotions are contagious. So then I get agitated and pissy and I don't even know why, right? So thinking about people with dementia in the caregiver relationship, if the caregiver is having a bad day and they come in, even if the patient or the person with dementia is happy, they're going to pick up on the higher heart rate, the higher respiration, the sweating, the agitation, and they will take that on. And so now you have two people that are in an agitated state and it's not comfortable. However, even if we can teach caregivers how to turn that around and use it on the opposite end, it can de-escalate situations. So there's studies that show if you smile for 30 seconds, it actually triggers neurotransmitters to make you happy. And you can try it now and you just smile for 30 seconds. But if we're talking about caregivers, even if they've had a bad day, like just take some deep breaths, smile for 30 seconds, change your own attitude, fake it till you make it. If we're in a caregiving state, sometimes we just have to put on our work-like mindset, right? If we're going to interact with someone whose brain is dying, I need you to smile. I need you to be empathetic in the way that you talk. I need you to take deep breaths. Because your loved one or the person you're caring for is your exact mirror. If you become agitated and mad, they're going to do that back. Your body is naturally going to feel that. If they are in an agitated state, if you walk in and they're smearing feces on the wall and they're all hyped up, my God, that's a stressful situation. But the more, just like if it was a 2-year-old, you might, but you're less likely to lose your mind, like, oh, we got to clean up, right? It's the same thing. We stay really calm and be really compassionate, and it will de-escalate any tense situation. It might take a little time because the brain processes things slower, but it works. Sensation is another way to enrich the environment, but I've talked about sensation a lot, so I'm not going to hang on that point for too long. Physical exercise is another one. They don't do research with people with physical exercise and dementia. So anything I'm about to tell you is not specific for dementia, it's just specific for brain health. But in order to have a healthy brain, you need about 150 minutes of moderate to vigorous exercise for the maximum health of your brain. If it's good for your heart, it's good for your brain. But with people with dementia, just help them move. Help them move so that when you move your body, it increases blood flow to your brain, and it changes the way that your brain has oxygen and energy and things like that. There are studies that show that you can do all of the things to enrich your environment and it will build your brain. But when you add in physical exercise, it triples the response. In order to grow your brain, you have to move. But you're going to maximize your benefit with movement. Cognitive challenge is another one. People will be like, Dr. Rhodus, I do crossword puzzles. My brain is fit. And that's cool. If you do one thing over and over, it's called a splinter skill. You're going to get really good at that one thing. Your neural pathways will become crystal clear, like a highway, like straight through, like crossword queen, right? What we want you to do is something that's challenging. Mix it up. If you like puzzles, do crossword this week, do Sudoku next week. Do a jigsaw puzzle the next week. Do something that's hard that keeps you engaged. When you're caring for someone with advanced dementia, this is tricky because you have to find the just right challenge to get them involved in doing something. A lot of times people will have apathy, so they'll just be sitting there. One of the symptoms of dementia is a loss of initiation. Initiation is our ability to start an activity. So people will be sitting in their chair all day long, not because they want to, but the symptom is that they can't initiate an activity. So as a caregiver, the more we can come into their space, into their vision, and help them get started. Even if it's just that first step to initiate, they can keep going. They have the skills to get started, or to keep going. They just don't have the skills to start. So help people get started in an activity and it will change their brain, change their life. There's a couple other elements. This research around sleep is really hitting the market right now. It's coming out really hot and heavy. When you sleep, they just found that there's a mechanism that cleans your brain of the toxins of dementia. If you don't sleep or if you have dysregulated sleep, it doesn't clean your brain, and the toxins sit in your brain and form dementia. You have to sleep. Ideally, we want 6 hours of relatively uninterrupted sleep to have the maximum cleansing process for sleep. Another thing that happens when you sleep is the growing of the brain cells happens while you sleep. So if we do all of this awesome stuff during the day, then we hit this window of I've had enough, I'm sundowning, let me go to sleep, and my brain will regenerate, it will grow, it will learn, it will change, and I wake up happy again. And then you overstimulate me by the end of the day, I sundown and go back to sleep, and rinse and repeat. You have to sleep. I think the sundowning thing is interesting. A lot of times, the science behind it is that the brain just hits a window or a point where it can't handle any more input. It can't handle any more output. If you have a toddler and they're having a meltdown because it's past their bedtime and they're on the floor screaming and crying and falling apart, you don't say, oh my gosh, you're sundowning. Where's the stairwell? They say, oh my gosh, it's past bedtime. Let me lower the lights. Let me put on some music. Let's get a warm bubble bath. Let me rock you. Let me sing to you. Let's get ready for bed. We lower our expectations of the toddler. We create an environment that's soothing and calming to them to prepare them to sleep. You need to do the same thing for your loved one with dementia, regardless if it's at 3 o'clock in the afternoon or if it's at 11 p.m. They can't communicate when they're tired. And so then they just have behaviors that are the brain just telling the body, I can't do this anymore. I need a break. Okay? Diet is the last area that we really want to make sure that we're focusing on. The enriched environment has to have a good diet. Access to healthy fats is really important for your brain. Did you know that your brain is 80% fat? No, it's not. I lied. It's 80% water. It's 20% fat.
The rest of my body's 80% fat.
Right. So it's 80% water. If you're dehydrated even a little bit, your behavior can change. But the rest of it is fat. So if you're not getting healthy fats, then you're getting bad fats, and you don't want bad fats in your brain, and then it gets dehydrated, you're just out of luck. So healthy fats, really lower sugar, really low salt. It's going to maximize the function. You can't do no salt because salt helps the channels work in your brain, but managing that diet. The MIND diet, have you heard of the MIND diet? It's Mediterranean and DASH. So Mediterranean is like Italian, Mediterranean food. Healthy fats, fish, olive oil, those kinds of things. Very low on refined carbs and ultra-processed foods. And then the DASH diet is low sodium. It's a heart diet. So if you Google like MIND diet recipes, it's going to set you up for a healthy diet. Okay, for the sake of time, I'm going to skip some of this stuff. But I have taken all of this stuff that I've told you and I've turned it into like a framework that we can provide clinical care for people. It's still in the clinical trial phase, so it's not accessible right now. But if it's stuff that you like, we've passed out a flyer we have a study going on right now where we look at behaviors for 1 week. So if you have anybody that has dementia, please feel free to send us a message or fill out that QR code. We can talk to you more about it. In medicine, we talk a whole lot about genetics and precision-based medicine. Let me create a medicine based on the molecules in your body, right? But what level and who is talking about precision-based care? That's my science, and that's what I'm really focused on how do we assess the environment in a way that's going to be most supportive of care, and what does that do for the brain and the body? I talked to you all at the beginning. I started with this example of swaddling a baby and encouraging the toddler to go jump. and let me get a massage. But here's the picture of the person who doesn't have the opportunity to get pressure or to regulate their body. This is the space that we have to help. In my program, I call it Harmony, not because it has people at UK are all about acronyms. I don't know if you've ever noticed that, but I don't like them. Just tell me what we're doing, right? I like harmony. Harmony is what happens when your environment is right, when your loved one is calm, when your body feels safe and regulated. It creates moments of just genuine flow and connection. So the things that I talk about in my intervention is called harmony. You're going to hopefully hear more and more about it. We're leading into a nationwide study, and there's some more people picking it up. But I'm going to go through this quickly. This is the research behind what we do. We've actually shown that people, I told you I started in pediatrics. We've actually shown that some of these behaviors are similar to autism spectrum disorder. And so I told you how we do sensory programs with people with autism. All of this is based on the science. Sensory processing similar to autism that we are applying in dementia care. We've done several clinical trials that are showing that it's actually working, that paying attention to the sensory input is actually really, really important. And here's the thing, it's not just for the patient. The caregiver has better outcomes too. The caregiver is more satisfied, they feel stronger and more empowered with their skills. And we're seeing it across all areas of activity. It's not just self-care and bathing and toileting, but it's the ability to go on a car ride or to go for a walk or go to the store. This is one of my favorite quotes. We had talked to one of the ladies. She was caring for her husband, and they were having a hard time with morning routine. He just wouldn't get up and get started. So we encouraged her to open the blinds because sunlight will naturally cue circadian rhythms. For 5 to 10 minutes before you talk to him in the morning, open the blinds and turn on his favorite music at a low volume to wake up his brain, and then talk to him. But when you talk to him, slow down and take pauses. It really transformed her ability to communicate. She said at the end of this, it says, so I've slowed down when I ask a question or say something to him. I've learned one thing at a time. Good morning, wait for a minute, and he'll say good morning back. That's helped me a lot because I just thought that he didn't want to talk to me. It's not that people don't want to talk. It's not that they can't talk. It's that we have to create an environment that welcomes them in and meets them where they are. We can build that connections not just in the brain, but across our life. So just to kind of pull it all together, I hope I'm leaving you with a strong understanding of the state of where we are in Kentucky. We are the worst. It is really hard here. We don't have a lot of resources, which means it's going to be hard on you all as the caregivers and the volunteers. But we affirm that. We're helping people with terminal conditions that don't have options, don't have resources. Life is really hard. But there is hope. There is hope in the ability to engage just like you would do with a baby or a toddler. We're not infantilizing our older adults. We're talking to their brain through their body because their brain loses the ability to just communicate with words. We're changing how we support people, and that literally rewires and changes their brain to the last day of their life. I've given you guys lots of tips and tricks, and it's something that I'm really passionate about. So if there's anything that you continue to want to talk about, we have time for question and answer, but I've also included my email on the last slide. Before I get to that, though, this is my ultimate. I'm a quote person. I like the first one, but this is actually my favorite quote. Maya Angelou said that people will forget what you did, people will forget what you said, but people will never forget the way you made them feel. And I think that's so powerful. It really is holistic, and it's really a summary of my work and what I bring. So my email is on here. Please feel free to reach out at any point. We sent around this flyer. It's a study. In this study, we're asking people to wear, it's like a Fitbit. It's like a watch, and it tracks your stress levels. We send out two. We send out one for the caregiver, and we send out one for the person with dementia. And we measure the differences. So that element of emotional contagion, we are measuring that in real time, and we can see it in real time. we only have 15 slots left, and I would love to include people on this side of the state, because we have a lot of people from central Kentucky, and I would love to include you guys. So if you know of anybody, please call us, or there's a link, you can like type that in, or just do the QR code. If you know of anybody, I'd really love to include you guys in that. We also offer $230 of gift cards for people's time, so it's not just like we're asking. Pay time. Let me stop. Do you guys have any thoughts, questions, comments? Yeah.
I just have a quick question. You said the Lewy body dementia was the only one that they couldn't actually diagnose. So all the other forms of dementia can be brought up or shown on imaging, would be shown up on imaging?
Yeah.
Okay.
So they have, it's called PET, positron electron, I don't know what it's called. It's called PET. And that's how they see the Alzheimer's disease. It's also how they measure cancer. So they can diagnose Lewy body based on behavioral presentation, but they can't confirm it in the brain. They can't see the pathology until the person dies.
Okay, so then an MRI would not pick up any of the other Alzheimer's, or is that
Yeah.
kind of the start of the imaging, then the PET?
Yeah. So people will have a CT scan, which is like an X-ray of the brain. They can see how it kind of, what it looks like, but
Okay,
then someone will go to the MRI, and an MRI will show the soft tissue of the brain, so it'll actually show the lobes and the depths and things like that.
okay,
And in that, we can absolutely see like vascular dementia.
okay.
We can start to see signs of Alzheimer's disease and atrophy in the brain. We can look at the size and how big it is, how plump.
Okay.
And then just kind of go through progression of the images.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Man, we shared a note that said we're kind of held hostage or tied to Western medicine and big pharma for a lot of things. So is there like neuropathic treatments, supplements, things like that? I see a chiropractor in town and he's a big proponent of those kinds of things. I talked to him about my wife with restless leg syndrome, and he laid out all these supplements that he said are beneficial. Haven't tried them, maybe they are, maybe they're not, I don't know. But in this world, is there any indication things like that might be helpful?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's always a hot topic. It's challenging because of big pharma, they pay for the
You can
drugs.
throw in medical marijuana while you're there.
Right.
Yeah.
Big pharma pays for pharmaceuticals to create drugs, right? We don't pay for the research to study the supplements. So the data that I go off of is evidence-based clinical trials, and the evidence is predominantly pharmaceutical-based because we don't have the money funneling into supplements. So I'm not gonna say that supplements don't work. What I'm gonna say is that we don't have the evidence to fully show the efficacy of what they're doing in the brain. With that said, if we take a nutritional approach, we know that there are nutrients like CoQ10, and there's some other ones like niacin and things like that that are actually really good for how the brain communicates, and that when there's deficits, the brain functions worse. The problem is that we don't have thresholds to know how much someone should be taking. We also don't have regulations on our supplements. So if you get a drug, even if it's generic, there's regulations, you know what you're taking. If you order a supplement or if you buy a supplement, you actually have no clue what's in it. So it's a risky space in that if you're giving it to yourself and you have the ability to like say, this is how I feel, fine, it helps, it doesn't help, you know. If you're giving it to someone who can't communicate how they feel, that's risky because we don't fully know what we're giving them in these supplements and we can't understand how their body is feeling differently. That said, I'm a huge proponent of fish oil and vitamin D are really, really good. If you have deficits in that, we will see cognitive deficits as well.
Cool.
So taking fish oil is
Fair enough.
yeah.
Yeah.
vitamin D.
Yeah, you showed Bill Gates up there, and I was just reading a thing where Bill Gates is, I believe that his father had Alzheimer's, and he's been doing a lot of research
Yes.
and putting money into the research for Alzheimer's, and I think he's coming out with a supplement, didn't he, called like Honey Brain or something like that? Do you know anything about what he's done or
Yeah,
doing?
yeah. So the Gates Foundation has put in millions and millions of dollars into into Alzheimer's disease research. They're really trying to understand the genetic risks and things like that. So they're doing a lot of the basic science stuff, less on the care side. I haven't heard about his supplement yet, but he is investing a whole lot of money into the research of Alzheimer's disease. Any other thoughts or questions?
Elizabeth, the one thing I wanted to ask about, I honed in on several of your methods for engaging with Alzheimer's and dementia patients. And I'm thinking about so many of our volunteers who visit patients and they have a short time to make that connection, so they're not with them every day, maybe once a week. And so the approach, you know, coming in at eye level or lower, and the hand over hand, eye contact and speaking slowly, and then possibly music. Those are the things I kind of, we all talk about a lot. We use some of the Tiva Snow teaching for those things. But if there's anything else you can emphasize on that for helping the volunteers when they're doing those visits, when they're coming in, they're trying to get to know somebody that they've never met before. And those communication difficulties can be really daunting for those short visits.
I think my biggest piece of advice would be to think about interacting and talking to these people in a different world or in a different way than we do as adults. As adults, we walk in and we talk to somebody and we make eye contact, and the expectation is that they just talk back. These people are absolutely older adults, but their brain is not going to necessarily process that way anymore. So going into any situation, whole body, with the expectation that you are going to use your body as a tool, that you're going to use their body as the tool for communication outside of just words. So using your hands, using pauses, using vision, helping people sing a song or just engage and feel in the moment. Not that you have to fill the time with conversation. It's okay to be quiet if we're just holding hands. Another thing, lavender is actually really therapeutically calming to the nervous system. So a lot of times in my tool bag, I have lavender infused lotion. As long as someone doesn't have seizures, sometimes smells can trigger seizures. But I bring out lavender lotion and we'll give somebody a hand massage as we're talking, just to help bring their body into the moment, helping them feel good, or taking them for a walk if they can safely walk and get back home. Helping engage in a way that's gonna do activities. It doesn't have to be done to completion, it doesn't have to be done with precision. Just doing something and helping people get started is some of the tips. But not, let's just go have a conversation, or let's just go talk about what you do remember. Let's just be together. Any question?
Yeah, I had a question based on we were talking about like pressure.
Mm-hmm.
So I also work in home health care, and so I work with a lot of dementia patients. And I notice with more than one that some kind of do like touching their fingers a lot, or counting over and over, same amount of numbers. Is that similar to the same release that they're doing like automatically?
Yeah, it's a dysregulated state, and they're trying to regulate themselves. We would call it stimming in autism. People do something over and over. It's actually like anxiety or a need. So if someone's tapping or picking or trying to like claw at something, finding them something that's beneficial that they can touch, like a washcloth or a feather or folding towels. They say that idle hands are the devil's work. Right, so giving something, if their hands are not, if they're fidgety, give them something to fidget with. Help them re-engage into a healthy, functional way with their body. If they're counting over and over, it means that their thoughts are stuck in a loop. Put on a song and it'll get them out of the loop. So thinking about these behaviors not as just an annoyance and that they're a problem, but in a creative way to do something therapeutic. Earlier, just a second ago, I mentioned this idea of using yourself and your body as a tool. In the rehab world, we call it therapeutic use of self, where I am fully showing up with my whole entity to help you. My body, my emotions, my tone, everything that I'm bringing to you right now is a tool for us to engage. Another thing that people will do, they'll click with their mouth, or they'll get really loud. And sometimes that's a way to drown out background sounds. So if you notice someone's making a lot of sounds, they're either bored and they need music, or they're overstimulated and they're trying to drown out background noise. So lower how much threshold is in the back, or bring something in that they enjoy.
Is there a bigger change from long-term versus short-term memory? Like long-term from the ones I've kind of dealt with in my own family, seems to be more intact and able to retrieve information from the long-term bank instead of newer memories that were created in the short term. What did you have for dinner last night? I don't remember, but they'll be able to talk to you about, running on the playground as a child. Those are specific areas of the brain, or there's some that dementia seems just to hang out in that short-term creative
Yeah.
area.
Yeah, so our memories are stored through the hippocampus. They're not all stored in the hippocampus, but they're stored throughout the brain, but the hippocampus is what takes it to the different parts of the brain where these memories are stored. Okay, so the hippocampus is kind of like a mail room, sending out the memories to be stored in the brain. And the area of the hippocampus that stores the short-term memories will get impacted sooner in the process of Alzheimer's disease. This isn't specific to all types of dementia. Vascular dementia doesn't necessarily impact short or long-term. It can be both. But with Alzheimer's disease, we will see short-term memory get impacted first. Like, I don't remember where my keys are. I don't remember if I ate breakfast. I don't remember what I did yesterday. And then it will slowly get longer and longer. But the long-term memories are there, and they've been there for a long time, so they have deeper networks in the brain that we can rely on. So if you think about memories and processing and networks in the brain like highways or roads, and new memory or short-term memory is kind of like a dirt road, and it can blow over pretty quick. But a memory of my childhood that I loved playing baseball when I was a kid that just makes me feel really good, it's tied into my emotion, that one's gonna be like I-75. Because I've been going and thinking about that memory my whole life. It makes me feel safe. It's gonna take a lot more pathology and disease in my brain to break that road down compared to what I ate for breakfast. Does that make sense? So in those situations when we're talking to people, we don't wanna quiz them. We don't wanna say what did, right? We wanna say how did, or can you tell me about, or just talk about a picture. We don't wanna quiz people. And also, we don't wanna be annoyed when they're asking the same thing over and over and over. If they are asking the same thing over and over, their brain is stuck in a loop. Do a different activity. Go for a walk, go get on a swing, blow some bubbles, paint, sing, whatever, right? Move their brain out of that loop because they're stuck and their brain doesn't have the ability to initiate a new direction. You have to help them. But you get to help them, right? After today, you know, like, this person's asking what time it is 17 times. Why don't we just go to the grocery store and then they won't ask me again? I love this stuff, you guys. I love people. I love the opportunity of humanity and connection. And bringing the science of how our body works with our brain, we're actually bringing it to the whole world because people haven't talked about it much. You know, back in the early 1900s, we have pictures of psychiatric hospitals, and they had wrapped people up in warm blankets like a mummy, like just warm mummy body, mummy body, mummy body. And it's so interesting because all these comments are like, that's so appalling. They've restrained these people, they've tied them up, blah, blah, blah. And the first thing that I thought when I saw that picture was like, oh, it looks just like the nursery. That's what we do to the babies. We calm the nervous system by pressure. And in the 1900s, they didn't have the science, they didn't have the tools or the technology. They did what worked. Pressure works. We don't want to restrain people by any means. But if we can give people more hugs and hold their hands more and give them a couple blankets instead of just one, we can help their body in an empowering way so that they can enjoy the last parts of their life as much as possible. People are afraid. The brain is dying. They can't remember. It's a terrifying space. Be the presence and be the calm so that you can connect.
Do those weighted blankets work with?
It's tricky. So the weighted blankets do work for the majority of people. It has a 20-minute therapeutic effect. Anything longer than 20 minutes, your body will habituate and you will lose the effect of the 20 minutes after 20 minutes. The pressure, the response, you know how I told you vestibular movement lasts up to 4 hours? The response to pressure can be up to 2 hours in a healthy brain. So if you leave a weighted blanket on somebody for 2 hours, after that, their body's gonna be a limp, wet noodle. So you have to be really careful, especially with older adults who have thin skin and frail muscles. and who forget to move. If I put a weighted blanket on somebody, they're gonna forget to reposition themselves. Another sensation that I didn't talk about is called interoception. Interoception is the feeling within your body, like pain. People lose awareness of how their body is feeling. So I have a weighted blanket on, I have arthritis in my hip, I'm really uncomfortable, but I feel like I'm locked down because this is so heavy, I'm just gonna sit here for hours. And then when I do move, oh my God, my arthritis hurts so bad, I hate you, right? Like, you get this response of like fear, pain, whatever. So it's tricky.
So really, weighted blankets aren't good for anybody that's used to sleep all night.
If you have a neurological condition or a communication disorder, we do not recommend weighted blankets.
Wow.
It's a weighted blanket trend, like my husband has a weighted blanket, he loves it. But he also knows how to kick it off,
Yeah.
right? He also knows how to be like, Elizabeth, I can't move.
Yeah.
But my 7-year-old, I don't let her have a weighted blanket. I don't let any child ever sleep under a weighted blanket. And I don't recommend them for older adults. I send out weighted lap pads, 5-pound weighted lap pads. I send them out in my kits. I like those because they offer a little bit of pressure and they're small so you can just push it off. But weighted, I don't know if you've ever picked up a weighted blanket. They're actually like picking up a dead body
Yeah, I
sometimes.
bought one and tried it and I couldn't.
Right, can't
You
move it.
can't move.
It's like dead
Yeah.
weight. It's
Yeah.
so difficult. And so if you think about someone who's frail, doesn't have good connections with their body, I don't know.
Yeah.
You also don't ever want to do more than 20% of the body weight. So if someone's only 90 pounds or 100 pounds, you got to be really careful not giving them more pressure than they can really hold. Yeah.
Is there a noticeable change in their body temperature?
With a weighted blanket?
Well, my aunt lives with me and she's always cold,
Mhm.
always.
Yeah.
Is that, a normal thing?
It's a typical thing. It doesn't happen to everybody, but the pathology in the brain, your thalamus is what controls the body temperature. So it would be interesting to find out if her body temperature is actually like 96, like is her body actually cold or is she just feeling cold? So if her body is cold physically, actually, then that's in the brain around what controls and maintains her body temperature.
She was at 94.
So her body is literally cold, yeah. So that's telling us that around her hypothalamus and in that part of her brain that controls her breathing and her heart rate, we call it homeostasis, when your body is maintaining the right body temperature, things like that. Hers is impaired. So you're gonna wanna turn up the heat in the home. If her body is literally 94, you want her fully clothed on a regular basis.
She was hospitalized, but that's how I found out.
Yeah. I would be in very close connection with her physician if she was able to come home.
She is home now.
Yeah, be in really close contact with her physician and asking them what they would recommend on how to maintain her body temperature at home. Because there are some medications that can put people too hot too quick. And if she was in the hospital and they're trying to figure out how to medically manage it, you don't want to add heat on top of something that's already dysregulated if it's going to make it worse. So I don't want to give you medical advice or suggestions without a therapist or doctor, but that is a really tough place. And that actually isn't something that we typically see. People will lose awareness to like, their nerves might help make them feel cold, like their hands are cold or something like that. That's often typical. Yeah.
What about us that's always hot, especially since menopause?
Right. Exactly.
What about, have y'all noticed like an uptick of like the fear of being wet? Like, cause I'm noticing that a little bit, like, I don't know if that correlates with just being cold or like literally like, oh no, don't get anything wet. I don't want anything around to be wet. Like, I don't want wet on their skin, on their hair, on like everything completely dry, no wet near, like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, that's not like a typical thing that we see, but it's definitely something that can come up. So if that happens, we have to think about what has happened recently or what happened previously in their life that was bothering them. So is it that they don't like the stickiness and the feeling of being wet? If that's the case, can we do some things like a warm towel in their hands to help desensitize some of that? Or is it that 5, 10, 20, 30 years ago, they had some catastrophe and their house flooded or something like that, and it's actually a trauma response. We don't ever really know, but what we wanna do is create a supportive environment. Not that we're gonna not let anything get wet, but that we're gonna help support them when things are uncomfortable. We still have to wash our hands and wash our face and wash our hair. So what strategies can we use, like lavender and music and things like that, to soothe their body, to kind of regulate and counteract that level of angst and anxiety?
We have about 5 minutes.
Well, yeah.
Well, I just have more of a comment. You talk about music, and when I last heard you speak, I took that away and have really related to that. And I have a little patient who's absolutely adorable, and she can't get a sentence out, but she can sing it. And she will sing me a little story. When she wants to tell me something that's more than 5 words. And, it's the sweetest thing. And she has a lovely little voice, so, it's something that I asked her caregiver. I said, has she always been a singer? She said, no, I've never heard her do that.
I'm so glad you were able to bring that into their life.
Oh, it was just so interesting and so sweet. And, I can't help but just be mesmerized.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, music is so powerful.
The part of our brain that makes us sing is stored in a different part of our brain that just makes us talk.
Wow.
So her part of her brain that's talking probably has had some level of vascular impairment, like a mini.
Very much
mini-
so, yeah.
Right? So her brain is now responding to the rhythms and your cues to work around that and to get to the part of the brain for singing. I remember when I first started in the nursing homes, we had a little lady who had a massive stroke, and she couldn't talk at all, but she could sing. And she would just be up and down the hall singing her little tail off. And it wasn't always just songs, it was just what she was trying to say would come out in a rhythm and in a song, because that was her mechanism to communicate.
And that's similar to people that stutter.
Yes.
That they,
Put a rhythm to it and it makes your brain
Wow.
skip a beat.
they can sing, but they can't.
Right.
We've also,
They usually stumble over.
Yeah.
we've also seen, let me just go back and say thank you again. Thank you for sharing that now. Thank you for taking away the concepts and giving that back to her and her family. It's a beautiful thing. We can also see music work with Parkinson's and Lewy body dementia because it ties in with the dopamine system and the rhythm, so that if someone has a stutter or shuffle gait, their body gets stuck. We call it like literally gait freezing, like their body's just stuck. But when we turn on music, it triggers their brain and bypasses that level of movement, and they can just start to naturally release and move into the movement and the rhythm of the song. So if you're working with someone with Parkinson's, or if you think that they're having shuffle gait and something that looks like Lewy body, the music will change how they move their body. It loosens them up and allows their rigidity to go away. All right, you guys are absolutely lovely. Thank you so much for your time. Please send me an email at any point if you need anything.
Thank you.